The presence of Yahweh refers to the experience of feeling or perceiving the presence of a divine or spiritual entity. This can be experienced through various means such as prayer, meditation, praise and worship, or simply being in nature. Different religions and spiritual practices have their own understanding of what it means to experience the presence of Yahweh, but it generally involves a sense of connection, peace, and transcendence beyond one's individual self. The experience of the presence of Yahweh can be deeply personal and profound, and it has been a central aspect of many people's spiritual journeys throughout history. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to this week's Hosea International Speaks. This week, we're going to detour slightly from the weekly sessions in the book of Genesis to reflect on what's going on at Asbury College, and then ask and answer the question, after revival, what next? The reason for detouring slightly from last week's session is because what is happening at Asbury College has to do with the presence of Yahweh. And last week we began on the presence of Yahweh, visiting Abraham and Sarah, and with the presence of Yahweh showing himself in a tangible way, it would be good to reflect on what is happening. What we see and what we are seeing and hearing has been prophesied by many of God's men. One in particular was Doug Sheets, who prophesied some 22 years ago that revival would start on the campuses and the colleges here in America. And you can hear this prophecy, which he recalls on his Give Him 15 daily program. You just have to go back and look it up. And that it would begin, this revival would begin with young people. And still other prophets who have listened to the voice of Yahweh, and still other prophets have given the word of Yahweh about revival. It can't be even counted at this moment. It seems that each week a man or one woman of Yahweh is saying or was saying, revival is coming, revival is coming. And now it's here. What are we going to do with it? Is this the final revival, you may ask? Is Jesus coming soon? Could he come tomorrow? To some, this may be their last opportunity, and tomorrow may be too late. But then for others, this is only the beginning. Now, back to the presence of Yahweh. Yahweh is showing himself in a real way. Now, the question that you guys ask, and I can hear it already, is this legitimate? How long will it last? These are all questions that have been going through your mind probably in the last week or so, and those questions are justifiable. Why does revival usually begin with young people? Some ask. Because young people have inquisitive minds, and that's a mind God can, or Yahweh can, work with. That's a group Yahweh can use to get his word across to the world. These minds are being invaded by all kinds of thoughts that are being taught in the colleges and universities around the world. And today's colleges seek to distort the reality of Yahweh and tell them that they are gods unto themselves, or tell them that we are the elite of society, or that a certain culture is racist. Is it any wonder that their minds are confused? Which way should I turn to, they ask. With so many questions being asked and nobody giving a clear answer, Yahweh comes on this scene to give one. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then he continues, he says, Come to me, all you that are laden with a heavy burden, and I will give you rest. He says, call upon me, and I will answer. He continues by saying, I am the light of the world. Is there anyone who is thirsty? He says, I will give you drink. Wow, is it anyone that he had to come now? Yahweh is showing himself real to a generation that is calling out. Now, the presence of Yahweh. This is a brief description on the presence of Yahweh. It is the divine presence of Yahweh is a concept within the Jewish tradition that refers to the experience of God's presence in the world. And according to Jewish belief, Yahweh, also known as Jehovah or God, is an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent deity who created the universe and all living beings. The divine presence of Yahweh, also known as the Shekinah, is believed to be a manifestation of Yahweh's presence on earth, often described as a bright light or radiance that represents his glory and holiness. In Jewish tradition, the divine presence of Yahweh is often associated with the tabernacle and the temple where the Ark of the Covenant was kept and where the high priest would enter to perform sacred rituals. The Shekinah is also believed to be present in synagogues during prayer and in other holy places where people gather to worship and seek spiritual connection. The experience of the divine presence of Yahweh is seen as a profound and transformative experience that can inspire faith, awe, and reverence for Yahweh. Now, to answer the question that presented in the title of this week's session, after revival, what next? The ecclesia must begin to bring about reformation. You heard this said among the prophets also. Past revivals did not bring reformation. They might have enlarged the church, but it did not bring reform. While the church was busy saving the world, the secular leaders were beginning to reform or bring reformation to our cities, our regions, schools, colleges, and seminaries, and finally, our nations. We must become the church that Jesus said we must become. We must not just be the church, but we must be the ecclesia. The term ecclesia is used back in the days of Jesus and before. And when he asked the question to his disciples, who do men say that I am? Peter answers, says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. With that answer, Jesus replied, and upon this rock of revealed knowledge, I will build my ecclesia. I will build my governing body. A governing body brings reformation. The ecclesia must begin to reform our colleges and seminaries. This is where it starts. Our cities, our schools, and then our nations. What will it take to bring reformation? It will take the fivefold ministry working in unison according to Ephesians chapter 4. Now, I'm going to pick up on that next week on the fivefold ministry of Ephesians chapter 4 and 11 and following. And they work together to fulfill Matthew chapter 16, 13 through 19. Now, I have a request from those who listen each week. Hosea International is teaming up with Troy Marshall Ministries to go to Mongolia. Pastor Troy has been going to Mongolia for somewhere over 12 years or so. And he has asked me to go teach in his Bible college of all places, especially in the light of what is going on here in America in our colleges. You can't make this up. Even before the Asbury, it was asked, could you go teach in our college? I don't ask for finances on my program, but because it is such a short notice, I would like to ask, should Yahweh lay it on your heart that you would give. You will see a link, which is you can give, and all that you can give will go to cover the expense of the trip. Now, I just thank you for giving. Yahweh will bless you. I'm Dr. Ray, and I'll see you next week on Hosea International Speaks.